So hello, everybody. My name is Alex Velasquez, and I'll be helping facilitate today's webinar. The title is Automating Infrastructure as Code Security with Snyk and HashiCorp Terraform Cloud. Feel free to ask your questions throughout the event on the Q&A feature. The webinar will be recorded. We will make it available in a couple of days. It takes a little bit to process, but as soon as it's processed, we'll follow up with an email with the recording and some materials that could be helpful to you. Now I have the pleasure to introduce my colleagues, the speakers today, Marco Morales, who's a Partner Solutions Architect at Snyk, and my colleague here at HashiCorp, Michelle Greer. She's a Senior Product Marketing Manager in charge of Terraform Cloud. Michelle, please take it from here.
All right, thank you, Alex. So little housekeeping items. We have a Q&A box. So please ask questions in the chat as needed. We're gonna have 15 minutes of Q&A at the end of the call. If we don't answer your questions in the Q&A box, we'll probably address them later. And the recording of this webinar will be sent to you in about a week. So stay tuned to your inbox. If you have coworkers who couldn't make it, you can obviously send them the recording. So the agenda for today is as follows. First, we're going to go over the problem that we face, which in this case is security with infrastructure as code. We're going to go over security best practices in Terraform Cloud. Then I'm going to hand things over to Marco. He's going to go over Snyk as well as the platform. And then you're going to see a demo of this integration. It features run tasks, which are currently in beta, but are going GA very, very, very soon. So stay tuned. We're going to be announcing this very exciting GA feature shortly in the Terraform Cloud, in the HashiCorp blog, as well as on Twitter. So stay tuned to that. We'll have a recap with Q&A, and then you'll have access to extra resources. So here we go. So this expression, we all know it in some form or fashion. When we talk to customers looking at Terraform commercial solutions, typically what they're looking for is they want to increase their provisioning velocity. And so this is probably why Terraform is one of the most popular open source projects today. So everyone wants to move fast until something really breaks, right? Just because you're using infrastructure as code doesn't mean that security is a non-issue. You know, people want to move fast, but you still have to consider security, right? So nobody wants to be, headline news for years to come. So this puts you at a crossroads, right? In your decision making. Do you, really empower DevOps practitioners to move fast and potentially, forego extensive code review so that they can, ship things on time? Or do you want to send things through a very extensive code review process through security who may be swamped? So here at HashiCorp and at Snyk, we abide by this lovely meme, ¿por qué no los dos, right? Why not both? And so made us pursue this partnership with Snyk. With Terraform Cloud and Snyk, you can use a lot of automation in your security practices so that you can move faster for provisioning. So we're going to get into some of these features that enable you to do this right now. So securing provisioning workflows with Terraform Cloud. We're going to get into the Terraform side first, and then Marco will get into what Snyk does. So when we're talking about best practices using Terraform, what are some core tenets to abide by? So first of all, centralized provisioning workflows for all teams, right? Simple. Secondly, we all are familiar, implement the principle of least privilege. Everything should be on a need-to-know basis when it comes to infrastructure. Thirdly, you'll want to enforce keeping things dry with a system of record. And then last, use code scanning to prevent misconfigurations. And you'll see a demo of this here today. So our first point, centralized provisioning workflows for all teams. So here at HashiCorp, we talk to some of the biggest customers, the biggest global 2000 companies in the world. We also talk to bleeding edge startups, and something we've noticed when they're using on-prem infrastructure is that they'll have lots of teams using different, version control systems. They are provisioning to different clouds. And so it's hard to get like a bird's eye view of what's happening. And this is where, misconfigurations can happen, right? Because it's just hard to get visibility into what's happening day to day. And so our first, we're maybe a little biased, but our first recommendation is use Terraform Cloud or Terraform Enterprise, right? What this enables your teams to do is you'll get the freedom to use version control, the different clouds that you want, and even some relatively different processes, but you'll get a standardized workflow that gives a little bit more visibility into what's happening day to day. So this includes stuff like role-based access control. You can standardize security and compliance. We'll talk about how you can standardize modules with the private registry. And then of course, everything is logged in one place. You'll get, if you use the business tier, you'll get audit logs. And so, you can pull these audit logs into something like Splunk and kind of really get a bird's eye view of how Terraform is being used across your organization. So second principle, implement the principle of least privilege for infrastructure as code. This is something, a lot of teams talk about, okay, well, we really need to implement this, but it's not something that people, in my opinion, take seriously enough until it's a real problem. And so thinking about this from the beginning, I think enables you to scale teams a lot faster without having some of the security issues that can arise. One way to implement the principle of least privilege. There's a really great blog post on our blog called Monorepo versus multi-repo, the great debate. And so monorepos essentially is just taking all of your infrastructure and putting it into one large configuration, right? And so that's great if you're working on an individual practitioner layer, right? Like one person, okay, all my infrastructure is in one place. But as you scale and as teams specialize, this prevents you from enabling principle of least privilege and having things on a need-to-know basis, right? The networking team doesn't need to know what's happening on the database layer and vice versa, right? And so Terraform Cloud has a feature called Workspaces, and this allows you to break up infrastructure. And so the networking team has their unique workspace, database team has their unique workspace, security team has their space. And so, this enables you to set up the principle of least privilege without a lot of work. So something to note in Terraform Cloud is infrastructure as code is a lot different than just plain infrastructure, right? We're not talking about, a JavaScript library. We're talking about physical infrastructure with credentials. And so if you look at RBAC, which is role-based access control in Terraform Cloud, you will notice that you can manage things like policies. You can manage who is able to set up providers and modules in your private registry. You can set up who manages workspaces and who can see, and this is critical, who can see state file and who can actually modify state files. And so the RBAC built into Terraform Cloud is meant for security, right? Like this is a lot different than just securing, just standard language libraries. So like I said, state file access is critical. Your state file is essentially everything that's provisioned in that workspace. And so you can really get very granular with RBAC if you're using this feature. So thirdly, we're going to talk about enforcing keeping things dry. Keeping things dry is not something unique to Terraform, but it is something used a lot. It's a phrase used a lot in this space. It's not unique to HashiCorp customers. And so in order to help our customers keep things dry, we encourage you to use what's called a system of record for all of your infrastructure, right? if I have libraries of everything that I'm provisioning, it becomes a lot simpler to ensure that I'm not rebuilding the wheel and introducing security vulnerabilities that other teams, and especially like security teams and my senior leadership, might not know about, right? So the things that help you keep a system of record with HashiCorp Terraform are you can keep track of modules, providers, policies, images, and credentials. So we're going to get into each one of these here right now. So the private registry is a feature in Terraform Cloud that I feel when teams really discover and really make the most of it, they really appreciate the value that it provides. This is definitely one of those features that when customers come to us after using Terraform open source and they realize the value of this, they get it fairly immediately. Like, it's something that when you're using open source, it's really easy to create what we call snowflake providers and modules. So you have an intern, they're really interested in Terraform, they write their own module for an S3 bucket, managing S3, and then all of a sudden you have public S3 buckets in your infrastructure. And so what your private registry does is it says, okay, this is a standard library of the modules and providers that we feel that we have vetted and have already gone through a security process. And so you're not having to go through and look at new infrastructure each time. If I need to use S3, I can just go to my private registry, download that module, and I'm off to the races. Something that is a good use of Sentinel that a lot of our customers use is you can actually use Sentinel to encourage usage of the modules and the providers that are in your registry in the first place, right? So this can be set on an advisory level or a mandatory level. You can say, okay, if this configuration has that S3 module that is not approved, flag it, right? Because it's not listed in this registry. So this is just something that helps you move a lot faster because you're not having to vet new modules each time. You're using a library that's already been approved in the first place. So something else that Terraform Cloud integrates with, I don't know if y'all caught the HCP Packer release about a month and a half ago. This is definitely something that helps reduce vulnerabilities in your stack. You can prevent outdated images from lurking in your stacks with HCP Packer. Something we deal with some of these enterprise customers is, if they're dealing with multi-cloud, they may not even know how many images they have at their company or how often they've been updated. HCP Packer's registry acts as a system of record and says, like, okay, here are the images that are currently in our being used in our provisioning pipelines. And so you can always make sure that they are up to date and use the automation features to do that. So HCP Packer actually integrates with Terraform Cloud too. And this enables you to use that one standard workflow for compliance, right? So a really nice feature in HCP Packer are image compliance checks. Say you have a configuration and it features a hard-coded image that is not listed as, that is actually listed as non-compliant in HCP Packer. Terraform Cloud will actually flag that image and potentially prevent it from being used in production. And yes, there is a demo video for HCP Packer. So we did a whole webinar on it, and I would Google golden image pipeline HCP Packer. So something also to note, secrets, right? Nobody wants to you want to keep a system of record for your secrets, not in a spreadsheet, right? And so you can use, if you're using like, if you're kind of new to things, you might want to use something like variable sets. You can set up a variable set with all of your credentials, and you don't have to necessarily make that public to anyone. That's available on an as need to know basis, or you can use the HCP Vault provider. So HCP Vault is available as a data source. There's a whole learn guide on how to set that up. So if you're interested in that, I can shoot you more information. So, and then our last point here, use code scanning tools to prevent misconfigurations before you provision. So you'll see this lovely quote from Benjamin Franklin, I think, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. I have to say, the first time I used Snyk, it's super easy to set up, by the way. And so we'll have more like guides and stuff to help you do that, but very straightforward. I looked at it and I integrated it with Terraform Cloud, and I was like, goodness, every single one of our customers should be using a tool like this, and this will make the internet a more secure place, right? Because even though we have Sentinel, right, which is still great, there's still a lot of things you can do with Sentinel, especially that are unique to your company and how you like to provision. There's all these CIS benchmarks that you need to take into account when you're considering security in the cloud. And so having these benchmarks and security policies codified in a way that can be kind of that can essentially cross-check all of your configurations and say, okay, here are the infractions, please don't, do not provision. It's such a relief, and I think it will really help our customers move a lot faster than they would be if they didn't have these tools on their own. So with that, I'm going to pass things off to Marco, and he's going to tell you a lot about Snyk, and he's going to show you a demo of how this works with Terraform Cloud.
Thank you, Michelle. As we transition, I start sharing my screen. I wanted to acknowledge a couple of questions, which I believe we have some answers. So one of the ones, and Alex, I may need you to help answer this. One person asked, will we be issuing CPE certs for this session? I don't have that answer, but maybe you do, Alex. I think the answer is no, as I see Michelle shaking her head, right? The other one is, I believe someone else on behalf of us answered that, we will be sending out a copy of this webinar. And I answered one, Michelle, you answered about the HTTP Packer demo being available. Just want to get those. I know there's other questions about Terraform on-premise, and those we'll address those later, unless we want to just add that answer now. I'll take the opportunity now. Can we use Snyk and Terraform on-premise also? I believe that's called Terraform Enterprise. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the answer at this point is we're leading with Terraform Cloud. Okay.
Coming soon.
Coming soon, yes, all these things. And I'll just continue. And Robbie, I may need some clarification about what you mean. Does the scanning work for any provider or just a cloud provider? I'm not sure how to answer that. If you give me a little bit more color commentary or questioning on that, I'll be able to help you. And I'll start ahead with the demonstration here. So here's an introduction to Snyk. We'll have several slides setting context, and then we'll hop into a demonstration. The slides do provide additional demo context, and we'll show those things, including like who we're targeting and things like that. So Snyk, what is Snyk? So that is how we pronounce it. We find it kind of fun to always remind people we are pronounced Snyk, not Snyk. And this statement here is we're a developer-first security platform for securing code, open source dependencies, containers, and infrastructure as code. I read that because it's a great statement representing what Snyk is. We are developer-first. You're going to see in today's discussion, I'm going to try to emphasize how we're going to try to optimize the activities and tasks that developers do. We really want to meet development teams on their terms, on their turf. So the different features and feedbacks and all those things are designed with the developer in mind. And we expand, we don't start on left, we are left, and then we go over to the right. And we'll show you evidence of those things. The other items about securing code and the open source dependencies, we like to leave that in because we are an application security company first and foremost, and we're super delighted to work with the HashiCorp team for Terraform Cloud. I've had a lot of fun the last 2-3 months working with them as I've seen us do the beta, do the partner, do the integration, and move along. I've seen some changes in the UI, and I'm super excited to always do these types of demonstrations, which I've done this about 3-4 times already. So this is a slide we show to establish context for everybody in the room. At Snyk and HashiCorp, we share certain visions of how the world has been transformed. You may call them digital transformations or something else, but the idea is, here's what we want you to think. Developers have more tasks to do as we all become more cloud-centric or more cloudy. Developers have to do more things as code, including infrastructure as code. All these extra tasks mean more work, and the feedback I've collected over the months, over the years, has been that developers still prefer to write code first and foremost. And the other things, they're not a nuisance, but they are pesky because they take away from a person writing great code and they want help in the right way. And so that's what we're here to do. Yes, developers, yes, teams, yes, operations. We know that there are things like security that we would want to help you with, and we're going to talk about that. Other things we show, and this is the additional, maybe the final level setting of how Snyk comes into this. Snyk is a multifaceted, multi-pronged approach for application security. We show the iceberg because we'd like to remind folks of, if you and your team write code, that's an area for your teams to use our Snyk code, and that's maybe 10 to 20% of your software. The other part for open source is like up to 90% of the software that your teams ship may be made up of open source. And we see that as a really interesting thing. If your teams are in the business of building containers and shipping those images, that's another segment. And lastly, the focus here we tie into with HashiCorp Terraform Cloud is around infrastructure as code. One of the lines I like using a lot is I rely on the NSA here, is they produce a report and they reveal that misconfigurations is the #1 cloud vulnerability that people have in their infrastructure. And I see examples and I'll show you those things. So just keep in mind, right? The NSA, they have this report. Please try to read it if you get your hands on those things. So who's impacted the most? So we find it important to identify with the audience. We have over 130 people on this call. And so this is how we speak to you. Developers, we know that you're motivated, interested in shipping code faster, and we do aim to meet your use cases. For the DevOps, SREs, operations people, we know that they want to integrate efficiently and to provide fast feedback. Across the board, the security, SREs, AppSec, these folks want to make sure that the software is secure. We use phrases like supply chain and other things just to remind those folks that beyond the software packages, there is a real interest in making sure that we're secure across the board. And we'll show you additional examples as we give you line by line insights into some of the things we deliver. Here in this representative CI/CD pipeline, it's meant to map our view to however your pipeline views. And we like to just pull out some things, for the developers, and you'll see the icons. You see the patch, that's the name of our mascot, and you'll see Terraform, the icon there as well. So at the code level, we have examples where people can, in their IDEs, test and fix their code. You may be in the habit of running Terraform plans at your desk into your own lower environments or just some kind of ephemeral environments where you get to create and destroy things because that's just part of your job. As your team commits to a repository, typically Git, we do have some scanning capabilities, and we'll show you some results in the demo. And the CI/CD pipelines, sometimes we lead with the pipeline. Today, we're going to use Terraform Cloud and its operational model to show how we deliver things into production. The item in the kind of middle in the upper part, the security gate, that's a really important one. It's a great conversations we've had over the last several years, just as an industry. And there are people who are really embracing the idea of creating a gate, or I'd like to block the deployment or the next task until I pass some threshold. Here, we're going to look at it in terms of security, but you also know there are other things that create gates, and we want to encourage people to do it as much as possible whenever they are given the chance. Top things, and there's a lot of words. You will get a copy of this, but the first one is we want you to know that we're here to work with you, in the Terraform plan command to do your operations locally or later on down the pipe. Other ones are when we talk about the integrations is they are enabled by Snyk by default. And there is language here about we're not yet GA, there's beta. It's easy enough to do it. It's really just sign up for it and use it. We encourage you, we challenge you to go ahead and try to go ahead and use it. And why now? So for those of you who have or have not, at some point you'll navigate to Snyk and or Terraform Cloud, and you'll notice the word beta. We used to actually have a date in here. I'm not going to tell you what that was, but the date is imminent, and we want you to know that we've been testing this with a number of externals. We're excited. The GA is very soon. Functionally, we were ready a couple of months ago. I have seen some little and bigger UI changes on the past couple of months as I work with Michelle and the greater team. I'm excited, and let's just get moving on to see the last couple of slides before we get into the demo. Snyk ISE. So this is now a message to the people in the room, like, how do I use it, right? So we do have IDE plugins so that if people want to see the squiggly red line or inline results in your IDE, we have that. Today, I'm not going to show that because that's a different conversation, but it does help for those folks who really enjoy working in their IDE to see the results. We also have a CLI that gives you feedback at the command line, parse into the JSON, JQ, stuff like that. I have it in the background. I don't really intend to show it, but maybe it's something we'll show during this demo if the situation comes up. I will show you evidence of how we're plugged in against GitHub, so you can see how we do scans of your repo to provide feedback to your entire team. This will be for the use cases. Me and my team work on common plans. They may not be running them, but they would like to derive the benefit of just the information being there always. Another thing we'd like to also reveal with that is we're constantly scanning your repository so that if we find a new vulnerability down the line, whatever that may be, 1 week, 2 weeks, a month, or a year later, we will let you know that this repository, by the way, happens to have a newly discovered vulnerability. Pipelines, instead of pipelines, we'll focus on Terraform Cloud, which is the basis of the demo. Some of you who are comfortable using Terraform and Terraform Cloud already may know about about Sentinel. Snyk and Sentinel are complementary technologies. We like to refer to Snyk IC or infrastructure as code as the security part of this. We focus on developer security, open source, all those things that I talked about. And we want to reveal the code, open source, and so on as a multifaceted approach. In some of the talks that me and my teams do, we refer to this as belts and suspenders as preparation. Sentinel is policy as code. I lifted one of the lines in this first bullet item is, I really like it. We and my team, we don't deploy on Fridays, or we don't deploy on Super Bowl Sunday, because that's probably not the right time. That's a rule you'll do with Sentinel. We also I've used it to limit counts or see the impact of cost. And those are really good. Snyk is not interested in doing those things. That's a great feature or aspect of Sentinel. Security rules, you'll have this copy. I encourage you, I will navigate to this page just to give you a glimpse of the different categories on our public page that you can kind of look at and say, I see where Snyk is going after the security space for infrastructure as code. Onboarding, really for both Snyk and Terraform Cloud, it's get an account, sign up, and connect them with the integrations. It's not really hard. It takes a few minutes. I was able to get my demonstration running back in the day in about 10 or 15. And this is me not having been a contemporary Terraform Cloud user. So I thought that was pretty easy. Some repositories, again, will be in the links. I'll refer to one or two of these during the demonstration. Lastly, is a demonstration. At this point, I'll transition to one of my tabs. I may ask Alex and or Michelle, did you notice any questions that we need to address now before I just move on?
There's some questions, but they could probably wait till the end.
Thank you very much. I just saw in the chat, I really like it that on your left, yes, Snyk. Thank you for that. I wish I could give you a $5 bill. Snyk is for so now you know. It's something I should have said earlier, but I appreciate the reach out for that. So here I'll do multiple tabs. I already have them opened up, and I'll walk through some of the examples. So the first one here, this is a forked repository. The repository is something that HashiCorp provides publicly. I'm using this as a basis for the demonstration. It is deploying on Amazon RDS database. And I encourage you, just go ahead and try it out. It's really easy to use, and I enjoy the whole experience. This is the source from where I forked. And the reason for this, and this is something I've done with HashiCorp demonstrations that I've done for my host companies, is I tend to go to the HashiCorp tutorial site, find a representative use case, kind of walk through it, and then use whatever assets here. So in the demonstration today, if you're motivated and want to spend half hour, 45 minutes or whatever, you can do the same things. And I really encourage you to just go ahead and try it because it's simple enough and you get a lot of value by seeing the well-maintained repository for your enjoyment. So the other thing I'll probably come back to is on Amazon, my team and I have an account. This is this education RDS instance is the one that I'll be modifying. Let's now show Terraform Cloud. So here, Michelle mentioned things like RBAC and how we organize things. At my site, me and my teams have an organization called Partnersync. You can imagine why we have the name. I also have a private one that I do for my personal one, but I'm only going to focus on the Partnersync organization that contains multiple workspaces here. The workspaces are for the different tests that me and my teams make. You can see just by the names, like for example, the first one, EC2 example, that happens to be on EC2 instance. This Learn RDS is going to be the basis of today's demonstration. And the other ones you'll see have other interesting names, including the word goof. At Snyk, we provide on GitHub open source examples of deliberately vulnerable applications that we would encourage you to do under the right situations, just to kind of test and see how does a vulnerable application behave in my environment. Of course, we don't recommend you put it in a production environment. You have to be aware of what you're doing. And for the purpose of this demonstration, I'm going to lead with the Learn RDS because that is deemed as safe enough for everybody to use. And we're not exposing you to things that could cause people to hop onto your machines and maybe do something like mine Bitcoin. Some of the things that Michelle mentioned, and I'll just highlight here is I did have things configured for run tests. This word beta will be removed in imminent. We keep talking about it as a commercial. And Snyk is a run test that I've integrated into my environment for my entire organization to use, my teams included. Coming back to the environment, there are probably other things I'll do as I remember to do those things. Learn RDS is the workspace. This is my sandbox. Before, say, a week or so ago, I was doing a lot of my operations from the command line running Terraform plan. After chatting a little bit with Michelle, she says, why don't you connect it to your repository, which I have done. So at this point, my GitHub, my forked GitHub repository is connected into Terraform Cloud. And when I make a code change, I will trigger a new Terraform plan and see all the results here. And that's actually been, Michelle, thank you for that. That's been a really nice feature. I should have started that day one, but I'm kind of a command line junkie as a result. For those of you who have not, or maybe have seen Terraform Cloud, the presentation layers try to show you all the information you have about what's going on, what are the states of my runs, what are my different things like settings, and I would like to maybe take advantage of some of the settings here. The things I thought were most interest for the folks here is really around, say, the run task. So what happens is at the organization, we set this run task, which is new, for availability to the entire organization. At the workspace level, I get to pick and use these different ones. My team has at least 2 of them. I'm using the one that's connected against my instance of Snyk. So what this means is you and your team can have the same name one many, many times because you're sending, in this case, Snyk's results to different areas of your Snyk instance. And that's just the way I work separately from Rick and the other people on my team. If I come back here, one of the things that happens, and I like this because Michelle, I believe, started to talk about like variable sets. I don't use a lot of the advanced features like variable sets, but I do have secret keys in here, secret variables that have things like my AWS account, and only I can use those things. My team is light. We're all running more or less as admins. You would probably want to use better policies than that. Now coming into here, the rest of the demonstration is actually pretty simple because once I connect my version control system, my GitHub repo to this, and it's a linear process, Terraform Cloud is just going to start watching for changes. And if I look at my different runs, I'm sorry, I'll click, like, apologize for clicking too many times. But if you look at some of the names, add, apply immediately, this is a change I made so that whatever I do, I don't have to bounce my RDS server and all the changes are live. But the other ones I've done previously were to increase the database size. You can see I went from 10 to 12 gigabytes. I added a couple of GBs here just to make things a little bit different so that you could see the differences inline. Clicking into the current run, the experience is like oddly simple and just efficient in a way that's really pleasing. I'll move over to my Visual Studio Code. You may have your own favorite editor. I used to be a developer. I'm using Visual Studio Code because it just happens to be the right mix and match. But the main Terraform file here, which is on the public repo, isn't too big. And it's something that I'll make a change later on to show a case. Actually, I'll do it now. And I'll just initiate the change, or sorry, the commit behind the scenes as I'm doing my demonstration. I'll move this over here so that we can do it right. Coming back to Terraform Cloud, you'll see the layer, the presentation here is, what I like is that as I make changes, I'm notified as to what are the pluses and minuses. So I remember a while ago watching a HashiCorp, I don't know what you all call HashiConf, right? One of their presentations talking about people really valuing the plus and minus deltas for a plan run. You can see those things where. And so what happened is, if I'm right in this one here, or perhaps it was this one, the storage that I had queued up was changing from 5 to 12. The true confession here is I was updating my database configuration from 5 to 10 to 12, but I wasn't noticing the cause and effect on my system. Had I read the instructions just a little bit better, I would have realized I needed to bounce my server, and that's why I have the apply immediately flag configured and doing the right thing. That works now. But I'm glad that these changes are now taking effect. And I really, as a user, value this because given all the different fields, having that targeted list of what the pluses and deltas are has been of value to me. This is the part where I get to tie into Snyk. Snyk as a run task is connected or integrated into the run. This learn RDS instance, it's not really complicated or sophisticated, but it does have some vulnerabilities. You'll see the results here. I set my threshold to advisory only. What that means, I am not going to fail, or I'm not going to block this Terraform Cloud run. I'm just going to let it run. You and your team may choose to actually block it, or you may choose to use it in advisory if you want to FYI. I also set the threshold pretty low. You can see severity threshold is set to low. Other options include like medium, high, and critical. That was part of me back in the day, just trying to get things to fail no matter what. Again, this is something you'd want. If I click into these details here, we'll come up with a new page that brings up the Snyk UI specific to this one. And now I can start talking about even more of the goodness that Snyk brings into this. What we see here is a page that is mostly typical of how Snyk tries to provide information consistently and easily for users. We'll list a list of vulnerabilities, usually top to bottom in some type of priority. Here, we're going to start with high, and we're going to give you a description of what the vulnerability is. Next, and this is something that we've been adding and making even better, is that we try to use language like, this is introduced through a certain item, and the issue is AWS resources public accessible. The impact is something, and you can resolve this by this. The reason we're iterating toward this model across the product is we've learned that teams, even with all the great database and web links and other things that we provide in the product, sometimes people just want to be told, show me this sequence so that anybody on my team can derive the nice, easy value from us. So we tell you this. I'll show you an example later if I remember of how we have code snippets showing this example. You can see from the title, resources publicly available, for a database, that's probably not the right thing, because most of the times databases are put behind some kind of application service and the database is kept private. If I look at a couple of the other ones, you'll see things that are useful for those that are accustomed to using AWS services, right? The non-encrypted RDS instance at rest, that means something for our database people. You know, especially if you work in European countries, that keeping data encrypted at rest is a thing, and we identify that. Other things about having an automatic backup, to us, all of us, that should probably make sense. Yes, I want to have this database backed up. As a tutorial example, we're not doing backups, so this is the reason for that. And the last one I'll just go through, I can keep going on, is using RDS IAM as authentication disabled. For those of you that use AWS in this case, you know the importance of using IAM roles to do the right things and give permissions accordingly. So that's one of those things that we'll show. I'll come ahead and show you just a couple more things, because this is the kind of information we're trying to provide to your entire team so they do more. I'll look at the projects that I've allocated for my demo purposes. So as a user, I belong in all these different groups. Me, when I run my demonstrations, this is just my view. I can share it with a friend, but for all intents and purposes, it's my sandbox. You'll see the icons, which I like. It's kind of cool, and people like it as well for the same reasons. And that is, they say, I like looking at this because I can see at a glance that this icon represents to me that it was something we discovered during the execution of a Terraform cloud operation. This other one with the AutoCAD is showing that we derive these results from scanning the repository. The Terraform Goof is a representative project by Snyk. And if I'm right and I click into this one here, which has 4 highs, this would be an example of how we do provide inline results, and showing you this highlighted line here, which has this value set to false, should probably be set to true so that we can block public access control of this thing because it's presently disabled, and so on. And these are the things that we've, again, discovered. People tend to like it. It's not that it's straight up spoon feeding, but it's strong guidance for you and your teams to use in your environment. I'll start wrapping up maybe by going back to the run and showing things like cost. I like seeing this because you and I both know that the people that we are accountable to would like to understand the cost. I haven't been at a single site where the local team was not told to reduce their costs or spend, as they might be saying, within the cloud. And seeing a plus 81 change because I increased the database size by adding a couple of GBs is one of those reasons. The other item I'll almost finish up with is the policy check. At the urging of the HashiCorp folks, they said, why don't we just add a little bit of Sentinel, give some people some visual reminders of what happens. It was super easy. I pointed to a repo. I got all these rules and they just showed up. Every single time I run a run, I redo my Snyk scan, I redo my Sentinel policy checks, and the experience for the user really is like a CI/CD operation. And then the apply finish just shows things that work. At this point, I am going to start transitioning out of the demo. I was going to do a change, but I'll delay that and maybe do the change on the side as we do Q&A. Last couple of things, if I can remember, we've shown some of these things. Oh, this is the page. So earlier in the presentation, I said that we have a list of rules. I encourage you to just, check them out at your own leisure. You can see we've broken them down on the left over here to things like AWS, Azure, GCP, and Kubernetes, and other providers of, including Terraform, of how to automate the deployments. I encourage you to check them out to see the direction we're going with the security-minded focus. And the last one is, this is not as more, it was just going to show you that we do have the Terraform integration, and it's presently in beta. We're looking to jump out of that. Michelle and Alex, I think this is it for me. In the background, I'll start my my commit just to have it in the back burner in case someone wants to see the cooking show continue.
Sounds great. Sounds great. So I encourage everybody to add questions to our already long list of questions. Some have been answered, some have not. So I'll start from the very beginning, not to show any preferences. Can you also share the deck alongside the recording? Yes, I can create a PDF file and I'll send it to the team. I mean, to the audience. The follow up. Next question is, can the NSA report link be shared, or what do we search for?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was afraid someone asked it. I'll find the link and we'll share it, Alex. Thank you.
We're afraid that people would ask it. Good, we'll send it. Snyk extension is available in AZ DevOps. Can this be used together with Terraform extension in AZ DevOps? I guess
That's a Marco question.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So thank you. I was writing one thing. So the Snyk extension is, so 2 weeks ago I did a partner demonstration to the Azure solution architects around security. So that's the context. So I am familiar with it. We use that primarily for the Snyk code and container and the command line options that have some intrinsic built-in features. It's not yet available for I think the question is, can we use this with a Terraform extension? I did not do that use case. Seeing the entry points for our extension, it's not yet going in the in the direction of Terraform Cloud. So that's something that we'll have to work on. Thank you.
There is functionality called depend bot in GitHub Actions. Can Terraform, Snyk, and AZ DevOps perform the same?
Yeah, so I'm not an expert in dependent bot, right? I've seen the evidence of working. So the context here I like to provide is I work with partners. I work with great companies like HashiCorp and others, AWS included. And so we go after things. How do we best deliver things for our end users? As a result, I'm not in the sales engineering mode of knowing all the exits for dependent bot. I know that some of the guidance I've been given is that Snyk is providing a total platform experience, not only of the code and the dependencies, and we also include things like container images, infrastructure as code. And if you look at the Newswire and our other acquisitions, you'll see that we're also expanding some of that footprint. So we'd offer that, definitely, try out dependent bot, but when you want like the total, platform experience, really do consider Snyk, because we know those features are not available in GitHub.
Okay. Perhaps you will, but could you speak a little about using Snyk actively in the pipeline early versus how AWS wraps Snyk scanning embedded in the AWS Inspector service?
Yeah. So let me start. I think my screen is being shared. AWS is one of the partners I work with, and I've done demonstrations for their sales teams and for their summits and other things. So the picture we would show for pipelines and what AWS has, I think that's the nature of the question is, first, Snyk powers AWS Inspector. They license our database. It is one of the contributors to the results you have in that thing, and we're super excited. We're happy. Yay team for everybody across the board. We will also come and answer the question of, with regards to Amazon Inspector, definitely use it. It's available, but understand that the platform play for the code and the open source ability, that is complete with Snyk. What we offer, there's more than just the results. We do offer things like remediation, integrations into your, typically like Jira or pull requests and things like that. Inspector doesn't have those developer friendly, I'm sorry, don't want to say the wrong. Inspector does not plug into developer day-to-day cycles. It is on an AWS service. We would offer that. We have a comprehensive solution there.
Okay, one more that's also for Marco. Does Snyk have the capability of integrating with a case management solution like ServiceNow and GRC tools?
So, I don't know if, so we're always looking at, I'm trying to be careful here. So we're always looking at partners. We are aware of ServiceNow. I'll stop there. And GRC tools, I need to be reminded GRC, what would that mean for I need a lifeline. Regis, can you help me out here with what GRC tools are meant to be? We'll wait for maybe clarification from someone.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
So next question, can you speak to any strategies to alleviate the PR workflow friction that occurs when the TF speculative plan fails to identify and predict Terraform apply failures, resulting in a merge and closed PR that has now failed to apply?
Oh boy, that's a detail. I think I understand enough of that. So we'll start by saying like 1, 2, 3 things. One is the Snyk does not typically approach things in a prescriptive way. So when I have the picture on the screen, we have these representative pipelines in different forms for our different audiences. So right now we did Terraform Cloud. I have a picture like this for like AWS integrations or Azure. And those are really helpful for us to talk to the people on the other side for those systems. What we do come back to is we're not prescriptive. We do have integrations throughout. So if your team wants to do things only at their IDE, we support that. If they want to do things only in the CI/CD pipeline, we support that. For things like PRs, we do have provisions to automatically create, but really what we want to do, and sometimes we use phrases like impedance match. Really what we're doing is, can you let us know what is your mode of operation? And we'll tell you, this is how we've supported those use cases. So the guidance we have is let us know We do have APIs, we do have PRs, we do have ways of creating things like Jira tickets more automatically, but we want to hear from you. What do you see that thing looking? One of the reasons we don't lead prescriptively is we see it as like a danger. If we say you have to do PRs and auto remediate and auto fix, the recipient teams may not respond very well. So we leave that a little bit more open. I hope that answers the question, but that's what I've been, I don't know if I've been trained, but I've been guided to provide those kinds of answers.
I can help answer that one on the TF side.
Okay, thank you.
I can't give details because we're a publicly traded company and I don't do that. Stay tuned to Terraform open source release. Okay, just stay tuned. But yes,
All right.
we
good.
encourage you to leave the PR workflow friction.
Yeah, so Navneet added some clarification, governance, risk, and compliance. I have seen that term. So I don't have a strong answer. So you can see from maybe even here with Snyk code, open source, container, and infrastructure as code, we don't have compliance, like strongly, described. I don't think you should be looking at this moment to Snyk for those features. There are plenty of other options out there.
Can I speak to the Terraform Enterprise questions that popped up?
Please.
There's like a couple. So people are like, does this work with Terraform Enterprise? Just a little bit of transparency. So Terraform Enterprise obviously is on-prem. We do monthly releases, and so we have to test. So the plan is we're going to go GA, and then we have to test in Terraform Enterprise. And so we are currently open to that testing. And so it's looking like in the next couple months, run tests and therefore Snyk will be available in Terraform Enterprise. So stay tuned. And that I can say, because that's kind of normally how we operate. The other thing that I'd like to answer, just because it came up a bunch, was just about the handling vault credentials. I did post a link to a Learn guide. Just note that this will require you to secure your state file as well. And so if you don't want folks to see credentials, then they shouldn't be able to see that state file. And we are looking to do kind of more closely related work in the future. So stay tuned to those Learn guides.
I was going to answer a couple of questions that I see on here. What's the cost? So if you're talking about Snyk, so our price list is online. We have different tiers, and the lower tiers are like swipe your credit card kind of things, usually based on user pricing and how many of the products you want. That's all available. I encourage you to check it out. Of course, that last column is going to be enterprise color rep. Those are for like the truly big accounts, but we have plenty of teams, 5, 10 people at a time using this, and we recommend those. So please check that out.
Great. There's one question around, does Snyk work with a wrapper like Terragrunt?
I don't know what Terragrunt is. I'm not using it. I go straight Terraform. How's that?
Good. That's good for us.
I'm going to go with probably not. Terragrunt, I will say their approach to Terraform is good to get started. It does have its limits, and we do see this all the time because of the whole mono repo approach. So yeah, I mean, maybe somebody integrates that, but I haven't seen it.
And one more question here. What IAC solution Snyk supports?
Good question.
Yeah, so here's where I can come back. I'm not on mute. I can come back. So the Snyk IAC is governed by this kind of page, if you can see it, where we have, ecosystem-based things, and also the language, right? In all of my demos, I tend to lead with Terraform as the example. And so, we're always looking for other things. I have not done too much with CloudFormation or ARM, but those are what we go after.
It covers it's not IAC, but also Kubernetes, right?
That's right. Yes, that's right. We have extended demos. So, just FYI, we have a DevRel team, with some Docker captains and Kubernetes certified folks. They love those demos because they'll show the impact of I've scanned my pod, my infrastructure, my cluster, and I can reveal all these nice things. I actually have a demo of 2 in my back pocket, but this may not be the right time for me to show in the last 3 minutes.
Okay. One more question. I missed the name of the Terraform Workspace pricing Delta utility. Can you say the name of that tool again?
It's called Terraform Cloud Cost Estimation, and it's available in the Terraform Cloud team and governance tiers in the business tier. So that's built into the product. It's just not in the free tier.
And one last question, is TFSec and Snyk, and does it have any similarity?
I'm not familiar with TFSec, so I don't know if I have a good answer for that.
I don't know I would have to look at them side by side. I couldn't tell you. I will say there was another question about Snyk and Sentinel that I think was a good question. So if you're still a little on the fence as to when to use what, Snyk has a bunch of security policies out of the box. So when you set it up, you integrate, it takes, like 5-10 minutes, and your first Terraform plan, you can see any misconfigurations right out of the gate. So Sentinel, there's some Sentinel policies, but it would take you a long time to write that many Sentinel policies. Sentinel, on the other hand, does cover a lot of the, cultural, like things that you have for compliance in your company, like the no deploy Friday, or cost measures, or using the private registry. Sentinel also, you can write custom policies because Terraform has over 2,000 providers, right? And it would take Snyk forever to cover that entire footprint of providers. I mean, they're not going to write a policy for like the Twilio provider, or like the Domino's pizza provider, or your own custom providers. And so that's where Sentinel can come in as well, is just to cover the whole footprint of Terraform providers.
We have 1 more minute.
Yeah.
So I don't know if the question on whether we can have a demo for Kubernetes and the HashiCorp.
Yeah, so maybe I can provide 3 quick answers. One is I showed this screen here with EC2. I encourage you to go to this page and just kind of look at the spirit of the security-minded policies that we have. That's one answer. The other one is I'll address the Kubernetes. So at Snyk, we provide like these videos. They're on our YouTube, they're on Twitch. Like the DevRel folks are like all over it all the time, showing the latest, example, Spring log for shell, all those things that happen, including Kubernetes. So I would recommend check it out, or maybe we can figure out how to link it. There was one more, the AquaSec. I'll just refer back. I'm not a sales engineer anymore. So I know there's alternatives out there, but that's not my wheelhouse anymore to talk about what other alternatives do. And I apologize maybe for that, but I'm focused primarily on let's make Hashi and Snyk, awesome, as well as other partners.
Great. I think we're out of time. Thank you so much. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Marco.